It's my pleasure to introduce the next speaker we have, Dr. Newton Miller. That's a really great picture of him. Dr. Miller is an expert and experienced administrator and educator, and he's going to focus on the goal setting process, which sort of fits in perfectly with what Maureen was talking about too. So, Dr. Miller, whenever you're ready, this is your platform.
Fantastic. I am assuming everyone can hear me. Oh, I see the green square. So yeah, it works. It's kind of weird when you do these things. It's like, oh, you either start talking and no one hears you, or you have to say, can you hear me? Either way, it's like, awkward, but nevertheless, here we are. So I was a longtime math and science teacher in urban school districts, from mostly in the secondary arena. Then I was a principal for many years. I'm now a college professor, and I lead some teams at our university where we actually build the teacher prep program. So we teach teachers to be teachers. So I like to speak with this whole thing, and I'm a grandfather. My wife does some homeschooling things and provides some videos for folks. So I think one of the things, if we can go to the next slide, that is missing is in this whole COVID and arena where we're homeschooling is a mandate in some ways. Is goal setting. And so your goal is a thing to which all your effort is directed. And I think, as Maureen was saying, one of the most positive things that's coming out of this era is that now we're with family. So we have time to communicate. We have time to talk. We have time to learn about, our children and them about us in different ways. So this whole goal setting process that I'm going to present to you today, I think is super powerful for you and your children, whether it's elementary or secondary, whether you're talking about short-term goals or long-term goals, but it's all about pointing towards all your effort towards something that's directing your effort towards something. We can go to the next slide. When we talk about goal setting, I always like to talk about these three gentlemen. So these three gentlemen, African-American gentlemen, grew up in the urban arena, didn't have a lot of visible role models, but they wanted to be doctors. So here's what they did. Their dream was to be a doctor, and they shared that dream with each other. And then what they did was they researched all the steps, all the milestones, all the things that it would take to become a doctor. They researched them together. And they made a list backwards from being a doctor to where they stood at that given point in time in their life. And then they made a pact with each other to hold each other accountable to working through those milestones and those steps so they could become a doctor. Now, despite the fact that all three of them went to different colleges, they held to their pact. They helped each other, and all three are now successful doctors. This is the first book that they wrote. It's called The Pact. It's about 15 years ago. And they travel across the country speaking to young people to help them learn the importance and how to set goals so they can accomplish their dreams, goals, and aspirations as well. If we go to the next slide, in that slide, we're addressing, I'm sorry, I lost track for a second, where if we're working with goals, we need to understand why goals are important. And we need to make that clear to our children as well as we go through this process. And it's really two reasons. One is to just give us direction. Where are we pointing? Where are we trying to end up? And so we could be more deliberate, on how we distribute our resources and our time and our talents. And the second one is just to keep track. We need to keep track of the accomplishments and the growth and the development that we, are experiencing along the way as we're moving towards that journey to accomplish that goal. In other words, we need to know if all the time we're winning as we're moving. For the next slide, once you know your goals are important, you kind of have to understand your role as a parent. So it's really two separate roles. You're either going to facilitate or monitor. So if you're in the elementary level, you're more of a facilitator. So you're not doing the work yourself. You're not giving the child the goals or saying it to them. Basically, your role in this whole thing as an elementary parent is to facilitate, to speak, to guide, to ask leading questions and guiding questions. And on a secondary level, you move back a step from that facilitator to a monitor, because now you're hoping that your child is learning, becoming more responsible, becoming more proactive in what it is that they need to do. So now you're monitoring, but on both levels, you're making sure that your child is on task, on target, and that all their needs are met. They have everything that they need, so there's no delay, whether it's a resource, a question, a setting, whatever it is they need. But most of all, you are the greatest source of positive reinforcement that your child can have. I know you think they're not hearing you when you're praising them, but you are their greatest role model. So you're their greatest source of positive reinforcement. So lay it on thick. Make sure it's authentic and make sure it's for good things, but lay it on thick. If we go ahead and run to the next slide, the goal of goals is to establish what we call a growth mindset in education. So some of Carol Dweck's work, Dweck, D-W-E-C-K, if you like to look up things, she has a whole set of research around something called the growth mindset. Now, the growth mindset means simply this. If there's a task that you might not have encountered before, or one that you did encounter before, and you struggle with that task, your thinking or your frame of mind is, I don't care if I've never done it or if it's difficult, I can accomplish it with some diligence, with some perseverance, with some hard work, with some responsibility. I can accomplish that task. And guess what? Not just accomplish it, difficulty, just a little. I can eventually master it. I can get better at a thing. That's what the growth mindset is about. Now, in order to make sure that goal of goals of establishing the growth mindset happens, you have to first be honest with yourself and identify your ability level. What's my strengths? What's my weaknesses? And be okay with that. But then secondly, you have to challenge yourself. Now, in challenging yourself, you need to set those targets appropriately, meaning this. You don't want to make them so easy that, you could just do them in your sleep. You're not growing from that. That's no challenge. That's you're just coasting. That's not good for you. But at the same time, you don't want to make them so difficult and way up here that you get frustrated because they're not attainable and you give up and quit. And then you just create a plan and then some system to assess yourself along the way as you're accomplishing your goals to make sure that you reach the finish point. We go on to the next slide. One way to do this, and I hear a lot of people talk about the difference between attention spans of children and adults, and there's some research that goes both ways on that. And I gotta let you know that I'm super ADHD. So my attention span is not that great. I have found ways as I've gotten older to, make myself pay attention and do different things, coping skills, I call them. But this method, the Pomodoro method, is something that will work across the board. I do it myself all the time. And basically what you do is you might have 100 tasks, but you focus on one, just one, knock the other 99 out. And for 25 to 30 minutes, you focus in on that task and give all you have to it. After that 25 to 30 minutes, you take a break, small break, 2 to 5 minutes. Get up, take a walk, go tell a joke, text somebody, check your social media, get a drink, whatever it is that you do. 2 to 5 minutes, then you come back and you jump back on that task for that 25 to 30 minutes. You repeat that cycle 4 times. The 4th time that you accomplish that cycle, you put a check on your paper, on your calendar or wherever. And at the end of the day, here's what happens. You have found that you have a visual representation of your time on task for that day. And you will have found that not only has your time on task increased and you've been more productive, but you'll also see that you've been more effective, more on point, because you're only focusing on that one task at a time. So that Pomodoro method is something, and I slowed down a little bit to explain that I think will work for you, whether you're an adult, whether you're a child, and it's something you should look at adopting. And you can adjust that and modify it in whatever way it works for you. The next slide. So now I'm talking about goal setting, you guys. So whenever you are setting a goal in any area of your life, these are the four essential questions that you must be able to answer. So as you're speaking with your child in this whole goal setting process and working with them and building relationship and bonding with them and helping them to parse out their goals, they need to know, first of all, why do they want to accomplish that goal? What obstacle are they trying to move? What problem are they trying to solve? They have to be able to answer that. And then exactly what is the goal? What do I want to do? Be able to define it, say it really quickly in one quick sentence. And then, how will I get that goal done? What are the steps? What are the milestones? What are the things required to accomplish the goal? And then finally, when do I want it done? How do I want you? So what is my schedule? Is this something that's going to happen in a month, a week? By the end of the day, is it 5 years, 10 years? Some system of accountability so you can make sure that you're moving along your path to accomplish that goal. We can go to the next slide. Now, there's different ways you could do this. I call them visual systems, because remember, the goal setting process that I am proposing to you is a partnership between you and your child, right? So if electronic ways of accounting or tracking that goal is good for you, then great. There's some free apps out there, and I know that Lumos Learning offers a lot of things, and there's some free stuff out there as well. Classroom Dojo, Seesaw, Google Assistant has something called Family Bell. All of these are apps you can download on your device. You can set schedules. You can attach links to resources. You can answer questions. You can send alarms and reminders. You can do all these things in these free apps to help your child stay on track with what it is that they have to do, and for you to be able to help monitor that and facilitate that process as they go. So the e-visual systems are available to you. And if we go to the next slide, if you're like me, old school, then you use those old hard copy visual systems. So you can go on Google and type in, goal setting charts or something like that. You'll find hundreds of them. You can take one off of Google, or you can create your own. Now, it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to have these things. It has to have the category of the goal. It has to have the actual goal statement itself. What is the goal? Why do you want to accomplish the goal? What are the steps, and how it's measured? Somehow on that system, you need to have that. And I'm going to share a few systems with you, but I want to tell you why it's important for you to have that hard copy visual system. It's important because if you're dealing with, especially if you're dealing with preteens, middle school, high school, the conversations as far as growth and accountability as they move through their developmental stages, their hormonal processes can get a little difficult. So sometimes if a thing is not out in front of them, in their minds, they don't think that is a viable or valid conversation. So when you post that the goal and the steps of the goal and the accountability system on a wall, on a closet door, on a mirror, on the refrigerator, if it's somewhere visual to be seen all the time, it makes the conversation about accountability of those goals a valid conversation in the minds of your teenager now, or your middle schooler. Now, the other thing that it does is it creates a culture of goal setting in your household. Not only does it help your household run smoother and be more productive, you're setting your child up for success after high school, after they leave you, while they're in college, far into their career, and when they have children of their own. So that's something that I really recommend for you. Let me show you just a couple of these systems and get out of your way, because I don't want to take too much of your time. But we can go to the next slide. See, when I was a principal in a high school, we started something called a freshman academy. It was an urban school. And one of the things that was lacking in that community was goal setting and forecasting, because a lot of times in urban or at potential arenas, you work on a survival mindset, which means you're dealing with here and now. and I don't want to digress. You could tell that that's probably my favorite topic to talk about. So we established in that freshman academy a goal setting portion of the curriculum. It was common for every freshman. And we came up with something called the 4-square goal system, kind of like the 4-square writing system. So you divide your paper up into 4 parts, and you can see there's 4 squares up there. So on this particular sheet, the 4 areas or categories of goals were family, friends, health, and school and career. Now, you want to have your children create goals in different areas of their lives. The reason for that is so that you can teach them that they are a multifaceted person and that they have to have a holistic view to themselves and that they are responsible for maintaining, for growing, and accomplishing in all the areas of their lives. So this 4-square goal system kind of brings attention to that. So in that square, you write the category, right? And then inside the square, you write the actual goal statement, but you're going to write it as an affirmative, meaning this, you're going to write it as an I can or an I will statement, right? And then underneath, outside the circle, outside the square, you're going to go ahead and write why, 5 to 7 words, really short, why I want to accomplish this goal. And then, when, so you can have some system of accountability or timeline. We go to the next slide. There's a sheet that we used along with the 4-square goal system that we call the goal staircase. And you can create these on your own. I mean, it's not hard to do. So that goal staircase, right? Here's what happens. You take one of the goals from the 4-square goal sheet and you write it right there in that square that says goal statement, or rectangle that says goal statement. Right. So now we're focusing on that goal for this staircase. Now what you do is you do what the 3 brothers from the pack did, or the 3 gentlemen from the pack did. You go ahead and you research what it takes to accomplish that goal. Now it could be passing biology class. It can be anything. For instance, I want to become a doctor right now. Let's just use a long-term goal, right? So I want to become a doctor, and I research what it takes. So that means I have to do a residency. Well, that's one milestone. If I have to do a residency, I have to get into med school. That's another a milestone. If I want to get in med school, I got to take the MCATs. There's another milestone. Take the MCATs and get into med school, I had to, get an undergraduate degree. There's another one. Maybe there's some testing. There's some other courses I have to take throughout high school. So you get all these milestones written. Now it can be 5 milestones. It could be 25 milestones. However many you come up with, you create that on your sheet. And then now that you know what it takes to accomplish that thing from the point of being that thing, to where you are, now you start walking forward and accomplishing milestones from where you stand right now in life. And every time you accomplish a milestone, you give yourself a gold star or whatever it is that you want to put on there to show that you've accomplished that thing, and you celebrate yourself and you celebrate with your child for that instance, and then you get them back on the horse and they keep moving towards that next milestone. So that's that sheet. Quick story. We had the freshmen would do this as a freshman, and several of them, when they did their senior project, and I was standing there as a principal, they would come to me very proud, say, Mr. Miller, I did my senior project. Look, it's milestone 7 on my sheet. Can you sign it off for me? So my signature was their gold star. But anyway, just showing you that it's a powerful thing that students can use. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to show you one more strategy that you can use for goal setting with your youngsters. Now, this is super powerful for middle school and high school students. Super powerful. It's great for elementary too, but this is super powerful for middle school and high school, and especially if they come from an at potential or marginalized population. This here is what we call a vision board. So this one is one of an actual 9th grader we pulled out. And on the left-hand side, they just kind of write their goal statement, what it is they want to accomplish. Now, we didn't make them really get into a lot of details of writing their focus or their goal statement. We just had them do it so it could be in their mind. But on the right-hand side, you see some pictures. What we had those students do was draw a picture of what it looks like when they have accomplished that goal that they wrote on the left-hand side. So what it does, and just to give you some educational talk, it takes the right brain, the right side of your brain, and the left side of your brain, and it forces them to work together on one specific focused task. It takes all the modalities and multiple intelligence and forces them to work together. And listen, as a human being, whenever you can connect your right brain and your left brain together to focus on a specific task, you are unstoppable when it comes to that task, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. When that happens in the human mind, man, you're unstoppable. So this vision board does that for your children. So in essence, it makes them have to see themselves where they want to be, and it makes them actually physically draw that thing. So now they've touched it, they've thought about it, it's now attainable to them. So all you have to do is revisit this vision board with them, often, quarterly, monthly, however you want to do it, and see, so they can see the progress and remember what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So if we go to the next slide, as I get out of your way, you guys, one thing that I think we need to understand as parents, and we need to make sure our children understand, that there's a difference between dreams and goals. See, dreams, they're like an arrow that's meant to hit some target off in the distance. And the desire that your child has, that dream, the desire to accomplish that dream, that's the bow that's meant to project the arrow. But if you have an arrow in one hand and a bow in another hand, and you never put them together and make them function, then they're basically useless. And that's where the goal setting process comes in. That's why you have to make the time to run through this process with your child. It just make it part of your culture. What the goal setting process does, it actually puts the arrow in the bow and draws back on it to give it the power that it needs. So when you let go of that string, that arrow, that dream shoots down the field and hits its target. So in essence, for the next slide, the only difference between dreams and goals, if we go to the next slide, the only difference between dreams and goals is action. So what I am saying to you is simply this. As you go through that goal setting process with your child, it's so important because it is the difference between whether you're going to raise a well-functioning dreamer or if you're going to raise a world changer. So I am finished with my piece right now. If I have questions, or you want to wait to the end for questions?
Yeah, I think so. This is fantastic. So I think for parents to know that they're managing a process, and these are tools to manage that process to help their child achieve their goals, state their goals, achieve their goals. Fantastic. So, Dr. Miller, thank you so much.